Okay. So before we recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, we take few moments.
Yes, okay. Here, let me, wait a second. Let's see. Let me stop screen share. Stop share. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can take few moments to feel that may our coming here together and sharing our knowledge, experience, being cause and conditions to develop higher level of compassion, loving kindness, bodhicitta, and wisdom. And may it become cause and condition to actualize our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be most and greatest help and benefit to all sentient beings. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodan sangye chonam la chanchu patu dani kyabsu sagi shushe gibe sonam ge dola penche sangye du para. So hi George, nice to see you again. And nice to see you, Mark, too. So we have been we have started 7-point mind training, and till now we have finished the first point, the preliminary practices, and then we are on the second point, that is actual engaging practice into the training in the bodhicitta. And within that second point, training in the bodhicitta, there is a training in ultimate bodhicitta and training in conventional bodhicitta. And last week we completed the verse that covered the training in ultimate bodhicitta. And again, within the training in ultimate bodhicitta, it come into two sections: training during the meditations sessions and during the post-meditation sessions. And we kind of finished that. And so if we go to the verse, so in terms of training, as we meant, training in the during the meditations, then there is a meditation on emptiness of external objects, and then not only the emptiness of external object, the very subject, the very awareness that precedes the external object, also that the mind, the awareness, the subject itself is empty, and then not only the subject, the awareness, the mind is empty, but also the antidote, the emptiness itself is empty. And so through that, then meditating on emptiness of all phenomena, and again, at the very beginning, starting with some analytical meditations, doing some examination, analysis, and coming to certain conclusion, certainty of the emptiness, and then without any further analyze, examine, then try to remain in that emptiness single pointedly, without any thought, without any concept, as much as possible. So that is, we already went quite a bit last time. And then not only during the meditation that we try to meditate on emptiness, but when we come out of the meditation sessions and when we engage into daily activities, whatever we need, then whatever experience that we experience, whatever we come into contact through our senses, any object, trying to remind all objects that appear to us that we experience are not truly existing as it appeared to our mind, our senses, but rather they are like a dream, like illusions, and reminding ourselves all the time during the post meditations. And so in that way, the meditation help during the post meditation, and what we practice during the post meditation help next day or next session when we meditate. It enhance and complement, and it help each other. So that is kind of the more or less summary of what we went last week. And if you go to the verses, we are on that verse where it says, it is like diamond, the sun, and healing tree. So the wisdom realizing emptiness is like a diamond. Like diamond can destroy all others. You use the diamond to cut stones and everything. So like that, this wisdom realizing emptiness is like diamond that can cut all the delusions. So it is like a diamond. It is like a sun, just as sun dispel the darkness. Also, wisdom realizing the emptiness can dispel the darkness of all the delusion, especially the darkness of the ignorance. That is the very root of all the other delusions. And it is like a healing tree, through healing plant and tree that you can heal of certain illness. In the same way, by relying on that wisdom, realizing emptiness, then we can heal from all the pain and sufferings that comes through due to all these delusions and afflictive emotions. So that is that. And then next, when 5G generation flourish, transform them into the path to full awakening. So some of the scripture they describe for 5 degenerations, degeneration time, degeneration sentient beings, degeneration afflictive emotions, degeneration lifespans, degenerations of the views. And during those degenerations, there's a lot of obstacles. And so when there is so much obstacles, external obstacle, internal obstacles, seen, unseen obstacles, when there is so much obstacles that we face in such time, the best way to make it meaningful is to be able to transform them into the path. And if we are able to transform those obstacles, difficulties, challenges into the path, and for such practitioner, then such a become most precious. Even the degeneration time with all these obstacle challenges, instead of being overwhelmed by such challenges, difficulties, and obstacles, instead of being discouraged, overwhelmed by that, instead, they can be very appreciative and grateful, thankful, because they see every of these as an opportunity to grow spiritually. They see this as every opportunity to develop more loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and wisdom, and to be able to transform in the path. And so therefore, therefore the author, Geshe Sherab, encouraging us, to transform all these obstacles and difficulties into the path. And once we are able to do that, then obstacle doesn't become obstacle anymore. Difficult, it doesn't become any more difficulties. The obstacle you have transformed into an opportunity and in something in the path, positive. The suffering doesn't become any more suffering. You transform it into the happiness. The difficulty doesn't become any more difficulties because you transform it into the great opportunity. And so therefore, so that is the encouraging. And then next verse, it start training in the conventional bodhicitta, from the next verses. Then it start training in the conventional bodhicitta. And as Shantideva said in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, without exchanging self with others, not only there is no enlightenment, but also there is no happiness even while we are in samsara. And so therefore the way to, the way to actualize fully enlightenment, we need to develop bodhicitta by exchanging self with others. And in order to be happy, even in this life, to have a more sense of peace, stable mind, sense of true inner joy, inner satisfactions, then we need to develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. The more stronger loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind you have, the more you feel worthwhile of our life. The more loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta we have, the more we feel the value and worthwhile of this life. And the more we feel that, the more appreciation we have with our own life and with our own actions. And when we started to feel worthwhile, our life being worthwhile, valuable, appreciative, then there is much more sense of satisfactions there's much more sense of inner joy. And so, therefore, trying to develop exchange, bodhicitta through exchanging self with others. And when, as Shantideva explained, and also in all other Lamrim, as they explain, when we try to generate bodhicitta by following a particular method or meditations, exchanging and equalizing and exchanging self with others, then normally there are kind of 5 points in that meditations. And the first point of meditation is equalizing self with others. And that is to means, we try to reflect, contemplate, and try to feel that just as we want happiness, we do not want suffering, even for a second, each and every sentient being has same innate feeling and wish to be happy and not to suffer. We are same and equal in that level, in that fundamental level. Even with people we disagree, even with people we have conflict, even they, just like ourselves, wish to be happy and not to suffer. That's all, same on that level, And just as we have right to be happy and not to suffer, each and every sentient being also have the right to be happy and not to suffer equally. Just as we have potential to be happy and not to suffer, each and every sentient being has the potential to be happy and not to suffer. And to realize that, to understand that deeply from your heart is very important. I think to some degree, intellectually we understand. But on profound, deeper level, still we don't have that feeling, we don't feel that way. And we pay too much attention to the secondary differences, we pay too much attention to the secondary differences, and because of paying too much attention to the secondary differences, then we create gap, distant, them and us, we and them. And so we create that kind of boundaries, distance. Why we have that feeling of distant and sense of boundaries instead of feeling oneness? Because we pay too much attention. We pay too much attention to secondary differences, whether it's the gender, whether it's the colors, whether it's due to your spiritual belief, whether it's due to your political belief, whether it's due to whatever, those secondary differences, we pay too much attention to. The more we pay attention to that, and we don't pay attention to that fundamental, deep fundamental oneness, we pay too much attention to that, and then we start to feel more and more kind of distant, and then instead of feeling oneness, then we feel more and more distant, and that is the problem. That is a problem for the world. That is a problem for the countries, and that is a problem for individuals. When we started to have that kind of feeling and act on basis of that. So, and once we have that kind of division, then it is hard to have loving kindness, compassion to them, the others. So in order to have true loving kindness, compassion to each and every sentient being, the first step is to feel oneness. And that is where the meditation focus is, that, focusing and meditating deeply and profoundly that we all are same and equal and oneness that. So that is the first point. And if we can feel that oneness with each and every sentient beings instead of divisions, distant, then it will be easier to feel loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta and extend and feel to them. So that is why it starts with that point. And the second point is, reflecting, contemplating on the shortcoming and the fault and disadvantage of selfish attitude, self-centeredness. How all the problems, whether it is our individual problems, conflict, or whether it is a problem conflict in the world, is a result of selfish attitude, self-centeredness. It's quite clear. It's quite clear. When we are too much self-obsessed, by that kind of selfish attitude, self-centeredness, not only we create a lot of pain, problems, suffering to others, it also make ourselves into a situation where there's so much conflict, where there's so much pain, so unhappiness, make yourself so miserable. And that is quite clear, as Shantideva said, all the harms, all the suffering, all the fear that is there in the world, they are a result of selfish attitude, self-centeredness, self-obsessed. So similar here, that is where it comes. Banish the one object of every blame. So that is where that comes. What it means is, whenever we experience any kind of challenges, difficulties, let's say physical health challenges, sometimes emotional challenges, mental pains, sufferings, physical health issues, whenever maybe people criticize us, when people disrespect us, when people disregard us, when people kind of insult us, humiliate us, in that way, harm us and our near dear in so many different ways through, our immediate kind of reactions and response is to blame them. Our immediate reaction and our immediate reaction response is to blame them for whatever difficulties, challenges that we are facing and going through. We blame others. That is our ordinary response, reactions. We blame others. But here, what it's saying is, when we train in bodhicitta, we try to see, actually, is all these obstacles, all these difficulties, all these challenges, all this suffering and harm is actually a result of my own selfish attitude, my own self-centeredness. So, so instead of blaming others, we pour everything and give to the selfish attitude and destroy that selfish attitude, self-centeredness. Banish here means destroy that selfish attitude by all these, whatever difficulties, challenges, obstacles that we're facing, by seeing this is a result of you, therefore I'm going to give to you. Is reminding, is because of that selfish attitude, self-centeredness, that is why I'm having a conflict. Because of that, that is why I'm having a trouble with others. Because of that, that is why I'm having an issue with others. Because of that, that is why I'm getting all these negative energies, all these obstacles. That is why I'm attracting all these obstacles. That is why I'm attracting all these obstacles, um, suffering, pain. What attract all of that is our selfish attitude, self-centeredness. So, and because of selfish attitude, self-centeredness, we have suffered from the, in the past, from the beginning of time. We continue to suffer. And as long as we give to it, as long as we follow that selfish attitude, situation not going to change. It will be same, if not worse. And the only way to change our situations is to reduce and overcome that selfish attitude, self-centeredness, and not being self-obsessed due to that. So that is meditating on selfish, the defect and shortcoming of selfish attitude, because that is the very root of the suffering. And again, it is quite clear, why we do. For example, a lot of time we have issue with people, we have conflict with others, problem with others. Why? A lot of time because we are hurt by their actions, their behavior, their attitude. We don't agree, and we feel like, hurt by that because of their such attitude, because of their such behavior, actions, either to ourselves or towards others. And the reason why we got hurt is because of our selfish attitude. If there's no selfish attitude involved, you wouldn't be hurt by such person's attitude, by such person's behavior and actions. You might not agree, but you will not feel hurt. Definitely, you might not agree. In some cases, you might have concern for the people that have been harmed, and that person itself. You will have a concern. You will have a sense of concern. You will have a sense of compassion, sense of that, but you will not feel such a hurt. But when there is our egoistic mind involved, selfish attitude, egoistic mind involved, then we start to be hurt, because then we feel I'm not treated well, or my family, my friends not treated well, respected well, and so on. All because, I believe this is the best and that, and therefore what I believe is right because of my egoistic mind. I can't see. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. When my egoistic mind is involved, when self is involved, there's more stronger feeling that what I believe, right and wrong, good and bad, benefit, harm, that, when I have that, then there's stronger belief, and on the basis of that, then we get hurt. And when we get hurt, then definitely, then that creates the bad feelings. Once you feel that hurt, then you started to have bad feelings, and once we have that bad feeling, then that creates conflict, problem. and sufferings. And it is quite obvious if we really observe and honestly look inside when we do feel have some issue with someone, when we do feel when we have some conflict with someone, when we do feel when we have some problem with others. Even though we blame, we think we have this conflict, issue, problem because of their behavior, because of their actions, because of their attitude, whatever. But deeply, if you look deep inside, is there my ego mind involved there? Would I feel that way if I don't have that ego mind? Would I feel hurt if I don't have that ego mind? And if I don't feel hurt, would I have a conflict and problem, an issue with that person? That is something exercise that we need to do. And that kind of exercise is a meditation. And so therefore, so that is the so meditating on of and then next one it says meditate on the great kindness of all. So when we follow the 5 points, then that is the third point where you meditate on the benefit and the advantage of cherishing others. In third point, it comes that in third point, then there is a third point, meditating on the benefit and the benefit of cherishing others. So into that, then meditate on kindness of others. If we talk about that, if we talk about our ultimate goal to achieve fully enlightened or fully awakened state, without sentient beings, there is no fully awakened state. As Shantideva explained, the role that Buddhas play and sentient beings play for our enlightenment is equal. The role that is being played by the Buddha towards our enlightenment and the role played by the sentient beings is equal. And so therefore he said, that being the case, having such a respect for the Buddha and then not having respect to the sentient beings and not caring sentient beings is totally wrong, because they play equal role. The Buddha inspired us, guide us, show us the path, but it is the sentient beings that really give us the opportunity to practice compassion, loving kindness, bodhicitta, patience. Without all these inner qualities, there is no enlightenment. We cannot achieve enlightenment or fully awakened state without developing those inner qualities. We cannot develop compassion on the basis of Buddha. We cannot develop loving kindness as the Buddha being object of loving kindness. We cannot develop bodhicitta as Buddha being the object of our bodhicitta. We cannot develop patience from the Buddha. But how we can practice and develop and perfect and complete all this practice. Compassion on the basis of sentient beings, suffering sentient beings, loving kindness on the basis of sentient beings, bodhicitta on the basis of sentient beings, patience on the basis of sentient beings. And so therefore, from that, we have to understand the kindness of them by providing such a great opportunity for our spiritual growth, for our spiritual realizations, and therefore helping us to achieve, helping us to develop all these inner realizations, inner qualities, and leading us closer and closer to enlightenment, and eventually to the enlightenment. And it is those sentient beings that give us that opportunity. And even if you talk from, all the joy, comfort, convenience, happiness that we enjoy in this life, all come through others, other sentient beings. Sometimes even though we feel like I've worked hard enough to earn and to get what I got, but without other sentient beings, will you get all of that? Without other sentient beings, we wouldn't have the house that we have now. Even if you have the money becomes just a paper. If you take that money to go to the moon, see what you can buy there, what is the use of there. You can take the money to the Mars and see whether it is any use. It's just a garbage. It is valued now because there are other sentient beings who value it, and you can give them, and on the basis of giving them, and they are able to give you service, whatever service. But without others, even if you have all the money, all the wealth, you cannot get all the service that you are getting now that make our life more convenient, more easier, more better. And so therefore, if we look from that perspective, then all physical comfort, convenience, as well as all our, inner happiness, joy, it all comes through the contributions and the help and benefit of others. And through that, and some directly, some indirectly. Sometimes when we think of contribution by others towards our, our comfort or convenience and goodness, sometimes we only think those who are involved directly. But there are so many others who are involved indirectly, and we don't. It's like an artist who are behind the stage. We only notice those on the stage, but more of them are behind the stage. Similarly, in everything, so many sentient beings, and through that, then we appreciate by understanding kindness of others. Then we try to cherish them, and then feeling sense of kindness of them, gratitude towards them, and through that, and trying to fairly cultivating a wish to repay the kindness, cultivating a wish to repay the kindness back. And of course, also, if we also kind of reflect from the many lifetime, then also, each and every sentient beings has been our most caring, loving, kind mother. not only one time, many times. And each of time, when they have been most kind, loving, caring mother, they have done so much. They have sacrificed their own happiness, their own enjoyment for the best of us. They're always thinking, how can I give the children better education than what I got? They sacrifice their own well-being for the best educations, for the best of their children's. They sacrifice all their enjoyment, sleep, everything when they are bringing up the child. They are willing to give fight with others in order to protect the child, thereby creating themselves a lot of negative karma. But they are willing to go create negative karma. They are willing to experience the sufferings for the best of the child by such caring mother, parent, you know. So, and sometimes, you know, I feel when you observe the animals, you know, when you watch some of those, you know, whether it's Animal Planet or Geography or different things, how, and also you experience, you know, how much the parents, especially the mothers, do to protect the child until they are on their own. Sometimes some of the animals, you know, they don't have much to defend from some of the bigger predator, but still they try to fight, even without much, you know. Also, I remember, you know, in the monastery when I was in Sera, you know, by the door, one bird has made a nest very close to the door. And then there was a baby hatch, you know. And each time you go in and out, when you look at that, it's a little bit suspicious, a little bit kind of not sure, you know, looking like that, but still you try to um, stay on the eggs to hatch. And once it's hatched, one day the baby, because fall down, you know, from the nest. And it was a very small bird, even the mother. And I was trying to pick up to put in the nest. And I think the mother thought I was trying to harm. And it was making a noise and trying to fly. You know, it's very small and not, it doesn't have anything to really bite or anything hit, but still is trying to make a lot of noise and flying and trying to scare you, you know, that, and trying to protect the child. I mean, in that cases, I mean, she can easily lose her life. It's easy for her, but she's still not willing to fly away, run away for her own life, but she wants to protect the child. And such is another good example. If you watch those, you know, you can see so much and so much uh, the sacrifice the mother does for the child, for their upbringing until they are on their own. And so not only one time, many times. And so we try to remember all this kindness from that point of view as well. And then through that, then trying to develop sense of feeling of kindness and the wish to repair the kindness, you know, the wish to repair the kindness, cultivating that. And mm, And in order to repay the kindness, then we try to develop uh, loving kindness and compassion. Loving kindness, compassion, and out of loving kindness and compassion, then we try to repay the kindness in whatever way we can, directly, indirectly, um, immediately, or in long term, um, helping and benefiting them um, in material externally, if we can, and also helping and benefiting them internally, mentally, um, emotionally, and especially helping them to uh, overcome their own, reduce and overcome their own afflictive emotions, delusions, helping them to develop their own um, inner well-beings, um, mm, by cultivating all these positive inner qualities, um, whatever we call realizations, or um, and through that helping them to free themselves from the suffering and cause of suffering, and help them to achieve their own ultimate happiness. And so and so so then next one, I think, is the practice of the Tonglen, taking and giving. So that is where it says, um, practice combinations of both giving and taking. So we try to, once we have felt the compassion, kindness of others, then we try to think of all sentient beings, their own challenges, their own difficulties and sufferings. Some of the sentient beings uh, are experiencing so many sufferings on so many different levels, directly. Some of them have health issues, physical, some of them emotional health issues, some of them have suffering of starvations, some of them have suffering of not being able to protect from coldness, heat, the suffering of that, some of them suffering of not being able to, um, not having the resources to take care of their own health when they are sick, and that, and so individual sufferings of individual realms, and the suffering of aging, sickness, death, um, and so much, and for others. Um, so individual sufferings that they are tormented and experiencing pain by the individual those suffering, and indirectly they have been tormented and suffering due to the cause of suffering, the karma and delusions, and especially, when we have the delusions, anyone who have the delusions, then they really suffer. They really suffer when they have the afflictive emotion. They really suffer. And so by reflecting, contemplating on that, the more you contemplate, reflect on that, and the more you feel how much they're suffering due to those, whether it's a direct obvious pain and suffering, or whether it's due to being under total control and of delusion and karma, and they have no no freedom, but being a slave of their own karma and delusions, being a prisoner of their own karma and delusions. So when we understand and realize that, then we can feel compassion to them. Even someone who doesn't have those suffering, someone who seems to have a good health, someone who seems to have all the wealth, no problem with the financially rich, wealth, they have families, maybe they can even have a good relationship with that, with the families, all of that, fame, reputations, everything. And it seems their life is great, isn't it? A life that everyone wanted to be like, to have that kind of life. We feel jealousy and we wish we had like that. So when we see that, because we don't see the pain and suffering, it's hard to feel compassion for them. It's easy for us to feel compassion, those who has obvious pain and suffering, but is more difficult and less easy to feel compassion when we don't see those obvious pain and suffering. But then when you understand, even though they don't have all this immediate suffering and pain, but still they have the karmic potential that could change anytime their situations. Their health could change any moment. Their relationship can change any moment. Their financial situation can change any moment. Why? Because still they are not free from the karma, and karma could change any moment. So therefore, then you can see, little bit of compassion, especially when you see, as long as they have delusions, even though they don't have those external pain, but internally they are going through a lot of difficulties, a lot of pain because of their delusions, afflicted emotions. And so therefore, when we understand, no matter what your situation externally, but as long as you are the slave and prisoner of your own karma and delusions, that itself is a suffering. That itself is painful. When we really deeply understand that, then we can feel compassion for all sentient beings, even those who does not have external sufferings, obvious sufferings, who seems doing well. Still, when we understand that, then it gives us the basis to feel even compassion for them. And when we feel that compassion, then in order to improve and develop that compassion further and more stronger, then we try to take their suffering and cause of suffering to yourself. That is taking. Out of that compassion, you want to, out of that compassion, you want to see them free from all this suffering and cause of suffering. And with that inspirations, with that wish, with that determinations, then you want to help them to do that. And then through that, then you kind of imagine and visualize taking on their sufferings and cause of suffering on yourself. And as we do that, as we train that, and then it helps us to our compassion to grow further. It is a technique, it's a meditations and exercise or technique to increase, to improve, to make our compassion more stronger. And then also we reflect on, even though they wish, even though every one of sentient beings want to be happy, not only happy, they want to be permanently happy. Ultimate, they want to have ultimate happiness, permanent happiness, inner peace, inner joy. But also, as long as they are under the influence of the karma, delusions, as long as they are the prisoner, slave of that, they continue to struggle to find that kind of happiness. Not only they struggle to find lasting true happiness, they struggle to even have a temporary happiness. And so you see the lack of happiness. They want to have a good health, but their struggles. They want to have good happiness or good relationship, their struggles. They want to have a happiness with financially security, you see their struggles. And so many others, they want to improve, have a better, but their struggles. Even temporary happiness, even temporary samsaric happiness, their struggles. And not to talk about non-samsaric happiness, lasting true happiness of liberation and fully enlightenment. So when you see that, then again, you develop a strong wish. I wish they could find that happiness. I wish they could find happiness of good health. I wish they could find a happiness of good relationship. I wish they could find a happiness of the financial security. I wish they could find an inner peace. I wish they could have lasting true happiness of liberation and enlightenment. So when you, through that, then you try to develop, feel, you try to think and you try to reflect and you try to feel that, you feel that strong wish, wanting to see them to have those happiness, all these different levels of happiness, which they want. And so once you have that feeling of that loving kindness, wanting to see them to be happy and to see them to have cause of happiness, then you give, then you send all your, all your positive, all your virtues, all your excellent positive qualities, your happiness towards them, giving them, and them receiving the happiness that they wish. And then you think that they're truly, strongly, that you try to feel very strongly that they receive those happiness. And being very happy, just like mm, mm, like the moon, bringing the coolness in the night, with the moon coming with that coolness. In the same way, then the light of the light of the moon you give, and then heal and cool all their problems, and give them the joy, the happiness, and feeling great about it, rejoicing, feeling so happy about that. So that is what we call taking and giving, or Tonglen. So taking the suffering and the cause of suffering, the suffering that are actually bringing direct pain, and the cause of suffering, the karma and delusion, which are bringing indirectly the pain and sufferings, of his pain and suffering. So taking on their pain and suffering on yourself, and with total strong feeling that they are relieved by you having taken their pain and suffering and cause of suffering, they are relief of that suffering and cause of suffering, and you are actually receiving them, you know. And then, and if you do feel, after you do that practice of taking on their suffering and cause of suffering, you rejoice to be able to do that, to be able to train, to be able to practice that, to be able to imagine and visualizing and taking on their suffering. And if you do feel the suffering, if you started to feel it, you rejoice it. Wow, I wanted to take it. Now I have really been able to take it. Now the suffering, the obstacle, the pain, whatever they are having, now is me experiencing it. So wonderful. I wanted to take their suffering, and I was able to take it. Of course, even you can't really feel the pain, and if you don't experience it, still that you rejoice it. But if you can really feel it, and you can really think that suffering has taken, because you are experiencing the obstacle, you are experiencing the suffering, the pain, rejoicing, wow, I was doing that practice. Now this practice is becoming effective, because now I'm able to really experience it, so that, and same with the giving, as we send our happiness and that. So that is the Tonglen, the taking and giving. Okay, so that was the about that verse. The next verse comments taking progressively from one's own side. So when we started to practice, when we started to do the practice of taking and giving, the Tonglen practices, you start with you start with something which is more easier for you to start. For example, sometimes starting with someone who is more close with you, someone you feel very close, any persons or animal that you feel most close, connected, very close. So if you think of their pain, sufferings, and wanting to take on their suffering and doing that practice, wanting to give them happiness and doing the practice, it will be more easier. So you start with that. For some people, sometimes if you see someone who is in very obvious pain, sometimes you see in the news, or sometimes like there was image, and last year or before that, when there were a lot of refugees coming from Syria in Europe, young children in the beach or by the lakes, lost families. And that, just when you see that, it's very painful. The suffering is so obvious, so painful. Or sometimes you see also image and news at the border, at the border where children are separated and how they are mistreated and totally. So those, like when you see that kind of image, or when you see directly or through hearing, again, it is easy to feel compassion for them. So again, we start with that, So basically, with the point is you start with any particular suffering, sentient beings, which you feel most easy to do that. Start with that. Or in terms of the 6 realms, where the most suffering is, for example. You can start with that, the most intense suffering. And then you next extend to another realm which is less intense suffering. And then you expand to another realm which is less intense suffering. And so therefore, and then gradually you include all the 6 realm sentient beings. Or in case of starting with someone who is close, you start with someone who is very close with you, and then you expand to someone who is more like a neutral stranger. And then slowly, most difficult, then you extend it to even someone you have conflict, your enemy. And then we expand to all sentient beings. So that is the starting point where you start. But for some people, they might find difficult to do that practice with others. Maybe they don't have they feel overwhelmed. Maybe they don't have the courage. They don't feel confidence to take to this practice of taking on others' pain and sufferings. And so therefore it might be a blockage for them to, and for that, then you can start with your own sufferings. Okay? And so, for example, you can visualize yourself in front of you, another your being, and then you can think the suffering of that you might be experiencing this morning. You can be, whatever suffering, the pain, difficulty that you are going through, and wishing you to be free from that suffering and wanting to free that suffering. And then with that, you can take on your own sufferings, present sufferings, and the cause of sufferings, and future suffering and cause of future sufferings. You start with your own, from your own side, for people who have difficulty with starting with others. You start with yourself, and once you are okay with that, once you have trained yourself, then you expand to others, starting with someone who is more closer to you, and then neutral, and then someone more difficult, the enemies. But for some people, starting with themselves might be more challenging, because some people have difficulty having a compassion. It might be easy for them to have compassion to others, but they might struggle to have compassion for themselves. So in that cases, you start with others, someone more easier, then you expand to yourself by seeing you are also one of other sentient beings. By seeing, so you start with others, to whichever object you feel more easy to do, you start with that object. And then once you feel that, then you extend to including yourself by seeing you are no different than that other sentient beings. And you are one of those sentient beings who wish to be happy, who does not wish sufferings, and who have right to be happy, not to suffer, and who has potential to be happy and not to suffer. And with that same that we do to others, you are also one of those sentient beings. So you cannot ignore yourself, neglect yourself. If you are ignore yourself, you neglect yourself, you are neglecting one sentient beings. You are ignoring and neglecting one sentient beings. The point is not to be self-obsessed and have too much self-importance and too much selfish attitude, self-centeredness. While we have to do it at the same time, we have to take care of ourselves. Same time, we have to have love, compassion to ourselves, because we are one of those sentient beings. And so that is, so in terms of starting point, that is the where, it can, according to different sentient beings, according to individual, It can start with yourself. For some, it is better. For some, we start from others and then start yourself. And so those, and place those two as right, the bread. And so then in order to improve the practice of taking and giving, then we use certain visualizations with the help of the bread. Okay, so in order to help that practice of taking and giving, you use the breathing, which we breathe anyway normally, breathe in and out, which we do naturally and normally. We use that as a support to help that practice. And so then when you take it, you visualize taking the other's suffering and cause of suffering in the form of, kind of dark energies. And then as you breathe in, going through your nostril with the breath, and then entering your heart, and then destroying our selfish attitude. You can visualize your selfish attitude, a small dark dot at your heart by your chest. And each time that you take in the suffering and cause of sufferings of others in the form of that dark energy, it destroys that selfish attitude. And then that transforms into a loving kindness and compassion. Having destroyed that selfish attitude, then transform into loving kindness and compassion. And then when you breathe out, then out of that loving kindness and compassion, then you send all your happiness, all your virtues, all your goodness in the form of white light together with the breath as you exhale, as you breathe out, going together with the breath. And the moment it hit that person, the other person, that person receiving the joy, the happiness, the virtues and cause of happiness and the virtues, all of that. So then you use the breath as that technique of breathing in and out as a way to improve and help that practice of taking and giving. So I think with that, maybe with that we finish the training on bodhicitta in during the meditations sessions. So I think I will kind of stop here, and then I will take some questions. Any questions? Any comments? Anything to share regarding something inspiring, whatever, So, yeah.
Yes, Sherab.
Yes, please.
Can I ask clarification? So when we went through the practice, and I understand most of them, the banish the selfishness, meditate on kindness, Tonglen, taking progressively, the astride the breath. But the one that I have the most difficulty to understand is the five degeneration, transform the five degeneration. I mean, this seems to be bigger than me. I mean, I can deal with my selfishness, I can deal with compassion, but dealing with the five degeneration, which you mentioned, time, sentient beings, view, lifespan, disturbing thoughts, how can I possibly have any effect on those five degeneration?
Well, I think the point is we might not be able to transform it's not about transforming the whole external time and all of that. Of course, maybe we can contribute to a certain degree in some way, but what it is saying is during those degeneration time, there's more obstacles. There's more challenges. There's more sufferings. And so when there is more challenging, more sufferings, more obstacles, we can be very discouraged. We can be very much overwhelmed by that. we can be very, our mind can be very down, all of that. So instead of letting those in such time, such degeneration time, when there is so much of that, instead of allowing that to be our mind, allowing our mind to be too down, discouraged, dark, and overwhelmed, instead, how can we transform them to path, our individual path? So if we can transform those into the path, then we will not be so discouraged. We will not be so overwhelmed. We will not be, our mind will not be so down. And so it is about changing, transforming yourself and your mind. So we are not trying to change the time, but in such a degenerate time, there is all this, as I mentioned, all these different, more obstacles, more suffering, more challenges, and because of that affect us in negative way. And if we learn how to transform them on the path, it will not affect us in negative way. And if we don't, it doesn't affect negative way, and if we can keep your mind more positive, more hopeful, more more hopeful, more positive, more strong, then we can do more to not only for ourselves, to the society, to the world. We can give more, we can do more. And so in order to take care of, be more service and better benefit to the society, to ourselves, to family, our society, the world, it's important to keep our mind more positive, more healthy, more hopeful, more virtuous, and more strong. And that will happen if we are able to transform them through our training that way. And that will come later. I think the third point is how to transform those difficult situations into the path. So then the actual practice will come later in dealing that particular subjects, that point. Yeah. Any others, please? Okay, there is one. What about the ego mind or self that become immediately active when seeing cruelty and harm to others? As long as it is ego, it is still harmful. Of course, someone can be immediately active when you see cruelty and sufferings without ego or with ego. And when our mind becomes very immediately active out of ego, when we see cruelty and sufferings of either others or oneself, then it leads to a lot of frustration, anger, and hatred. While our mind is being active due to seeing the cruelty and suffering, but because it comes out of the egoistic mind, so then when it comes from that egoistic mind, then it leads to other negative feelings such as frustrations, anger, and hatred, ill will feelings. So instead, if we can feel immediately active out of loving kindness, bodhicitta, compassion, not out of ego, then while you feel that, you see and you feel the pain and sufferings, and you don't agree, you don't not only agree, you totally disagree with the cruelty and the harm that is done, and but without feeling so much anger and hatred for the perpetrator. Not only so, you can feel not only love and compassion for the victim, but you can also feel compassion and love for the perpetrator. But that doesn't mean that you will not take any actions to stop such. Just because you have love and compassion doesn't mean you will not take actions to stop such behavior and actions, because it's a harmful actions, but with a more calm, compassionate state of mind. And so I think that is, and so I think it is important to us to look inside, whether it is coming from compassion state of mind, whether it is coming from egoistic mind of mind. And when we look back, if we see, oh, instead of coming from compassion, it's coming more from egoistic mind. So we try to transform and change it and make it more coming from compassion point of view, more loving kindness point of view. And therefore, not only we can feel compassion for everyone, and so then there is no anger and hatred and ill will feeling to anyone. And if we can do that, we suffer less, and and also will do less damage and harm to others. If I have anger and hatred because someone was cruel and harmful to someone, while I'm being helpful to someone, protecting someone, also I'm, because of my ill will feeling, I could hurt and harm the other one. So it is like, so then, and instead we can, the point is we can feel love and compassion for everyone, while we can totally disagree such a harmful and cruel behavior and actions. And not only we disagree, we have to take any actions that we can to stop such behavior that is cruel and harmful. Okay, and so then okay, then there is the compassion for the cruelty door is because ignorance is the cause of all sufferings. I couldn't understand exact these questions. If anyone can make a little bit more clear to me. Yes, please.
Hi, Geshe. Thanks for your teaching.
Yes, hi, Mike. Thank you.
Well, it ties in a little bit to what I was going to share. It might be simple or naive, but I just had this reminder in your teaching that it seems to me that the reason why I need or I would want to see every sentient being as a being who wants happiness and wants to avoid suffering is also because it seems to me that I only get access to understanding or information about why people do what they do if that is my mindset to begin with. Because what is the alternative? The alternative is to make them have ulterior motives, to be evil, to demonize them, which kind of just leave me with a blind alley, which would only lead to more suffering. I'll demonize more people. I'll have no solutions to work around them other than to kill them or eradicate them. But it just seems to me that my own little empirical observation is that if I actually apply that as a beginning point for all understanding of people, it opens the door in my mind of actually getting to see beyond what they do, to see beyond their evil doings, to see deeper into their character about what made them become this kind of person, what could have made their story to become such a painful one, and even want to inflict that pain on others. I just felt like sharing that because it was just a great reminder to why it is so important to think like that.
Yeah, I think it's very, very, thank you for sharing. I think it's a very important and crucial point. I think yeah, a lot of time if we know the people's background from their childhood, and maybe we might not agree with their cruelty and harmful behavior, but we can feel um, we can feel for them. And that is the point. While we feel for them, we disagree with their behavior and actions. And those two things, to be able to distinguish those two things. And once you feel for that, then you don't have any hatred and anger towards them while you disagree with their harmful behavior and cruelties. And I think that, and of course, if you go even beyond that in past life, then, karma, delusions, and then coming to ignorance and all of that, then we know, the main cause of all this cruelty behavior and actions coming from the ignorance and all the delusions and karmic imprint, and probably maybe some contributions of the environment in your someone's upbringings, in terms of what kind of informations people you are surrounded, that can change people's mindsets and their belief. Um, if I'm surrounded by my people that have different outlook, different perspective, and I grow in that kind of environment, and I have all this sudden access to certain information because that is the source of my information and so such, then I could become a totally different person. I could become a very totally different person. And so I'm very grateful and thankful that I was exposed to a better environment with the previous karma. Fortunate to have that kind of, if I don't have a fortune to have in a good environment, I could become a cruel person. Maybe I'm already cruel, but I could be a more cruel person.
Yeah, we could have been them. Maybe we were,
Okay, thank you. So I don't know this. I hope that the cautions, the compassion for the cruel door is because ignorance is the cause of all suffering. I guess I hope I still didn't understand exactly the cautions, but I have with the Mikhail sharing his story, maybe that probably is okay. So if you have any caution, last cautions or comment, if anyone has something to share, whatever.
Geshe, I was just going to try to rephrase Sherry's question. I think she's asking, would you have compassion for the person who is cruel because you understand that they are acting out of ignorance? I think that's how I understood her question.
Okay. And then, of course, definitely, if we understand that person is acting out of ignorance, then I think there is more space to feel compassion than when we know someone is being cruel, knowingly, someone is harming someone, knowing they are harming is more difficult to feel compassion with that person than someone who is out of ignorance, feeling they are not harming, but they are actually harming. And because of that, for example, when we know, even we might not agree with some person's, more harmful or cruel policies or whatever that we can, but if we know that, even though that is not the best action policy, but it is coming from good heart for the best of the countries, we can still feel for that person. We don't agree with that policies, but we know that it's coming from good heart for the best of, we have different approach, what is the best for the country, but actually it's coming from saying that for the best of the countries or best of the persons. So for example, that will be one case different. And same thing, it's easy for me to feel compassion because someone did out of ignorance than someone who did not out of ignorance, but did knowingly, so I think there is a difference whether we, how easy it is to feel, have a compassion or not on the basis of understanding those things. I mean that all the violence, brutality is caused by ignorance. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. If you go back, further, then all the harm, all the cruelty, all the violence, definitely coming from, anger, attachments, ignorance, and fundamentally, if we go further, then is that the very fundamental ignorance. It all comes with that. There's no doubt about that. So absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think that is what. I can. I from my understanding, from Buddhist point of view, that is the point that all of that come from ignorance. Okay, so we'll do the dedications. May, can you see?
Do you want to do the dedication first and then the Shantideva's prayer, or?
Yeah, we'll do the dedication, the Shantideva's prayer.
Very good.
Okay. So again, while we do this Shantideva prayer, while we recite, not just word, we try to feel it as much as possible. So then that is the dedication from your heart, trying to feel the word as much as possible as we recite it. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merits. May no living creatures suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May the medicine be effective and the wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from all their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power and may the people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very, very much. Good night.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Connection is so much
Good
better.
night.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you so much.
So I think we have
Thank you.
1 week off and then we come in next time, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, nice to see you, Amy.
Thank
How was
you.